You're always so dramatic, Mom. I said I'd pay it. I just need a few days. Paris's lips puckered like she'd just sucked on a lemon. Few days? Olive, the invoice is already late. They could kick us out. They're not going to kick you out of a $6,000 a month luxury care facility over one late payment, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. Greg didn't look up from his recliner. It's not about the money. It's about responsibility. You made a commitment. I bit the inside of my cheek. The smell of lavender air freshener was suffocating. Every Sunday, same routine. I brought groceries, paid bills, listened to two people who hadn't worked in over a decade, guilt-tripped me like I was the family disappointment. I'm not backing out of anything, I said. My car needed new brakes and the hospital cut overtime again. I'm managing. Paris sighed like she was auditioning for a soap opera. I just don't understand how your brother can make things work so easily. He never complains. I laughed, sharp and too loud. Yeah, well, maybe Dawson's life is just easier. Greg finally looked at me. That's a low blow. I stood up. You know what? I'll transfer the money tonight. Don't worry. Wouldn't want to ruin your Sunday. I grabbed my tote bag and headed for the door. Paris called after me. You used to be so sweet. What happened to you? I didn't answer. I didn't trust what would come out. My name's Olive. I'm 35, single, and I work in healthcare administration. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, barely. Especially when you're funneling $6,000 a month into your parents' care because they don't trust the state and deserve comfort in their final years. Dawson? He's 3 years older, lives in a condo downtown, drives a Tesla, and hasn't paid a dime toward our parents since Grandpa died. They say he inherited a modest sum, enough to get him on his feet. That was 10 years ago. Apparently, his feet are made of gold. After I left my parents' house, I drove straight to Ariel's. She opened the door before I even knocked. Let me guess, she said. They called you selfish again? Bingo. She handed me a glass of wine before I even sat down. You know this isn't normal, right? Like, you're not a bad daughter for needing a moment to breathe. They're old, Ariel. They're manipulative. I didn't argue. I just sipped the wine and stared at her cat, who was licking his butt in the corner like he didn't have a care in the world. Ariel sat beside me. I've been thinking about Dawson. I groaned. Please don't. No, listen. Remember Soleil, that junior accountant at your parents' place? Yeah? She mentioned something weird when I saw her last week. Said she saw a document labeled Pierce Family Trust. I blinked. What? Yeah, she didn't think much of it, just remembered the name. Said it was buried in some old billing folder. I sat up straighter. That doesn't make sense. There's no family trust. Ariel raised an eyebrow. Isn't there? I shook my head. No. Grandpa left Dawson a small inheritance. That's it. Olive, you've been paying $6,000 a month for years. Dawson's living like a tech bro with no job. Don't you think something's off? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My stomach twisted. After I got home that night, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the refrigerator. My apartment was small, clean, quiet. No framed family photos, no heirlooms, just me and the hum of the fridge. I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking app. The last transfer, $6,000. Before that, $6,000, month after month. My savings account was a joke. My emergency fund was a punchline. I closed the laptop and paced. Ariel was always suspicious, always digging, but Soleil, she didn't even know me. Why would she lie? I tried to sleep, but my brain wouldn't shut up. I kept seeing Dawson's smug face at Grandpa's funeral, giving that speech like he was the grieving golden boy. I remembered how he flew to Italy afterward to heal, while I took a second job to help cover the funeral costs. I got out of bed and made tea I didn't drink. I opened the drawer where I kept old family documents, birth certificates, my college transcripts, a faded photo of me and Grandpa fishing, no trust documents, no clues. I stared at the wall clock, 2:17 a.m. What if Ariel was right? What if Soleil saw something real? What if my whole life, every sacrifice, every skipped vacation, every sleepless night was built on a lie? I didn't sleep at all. The guest room smelled like dust and old perfume. I hadn't been in there since Dad converted it into his office, which was just a fancy way of saying he shoved a desk in the corner and filled it with junk mail and broken pens. "I'm just grabbing some photo albums," I called out to Paris from the hallway. "Top shelf in the linen closet," she replied, her voice floating from the kitchen. "Be careful with the ones from Italy. Dawson loved those." Of course he did. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The air was thick. The desk was a mess. Papers, envelopes, a mug with dried coffee crusted at the bottom. I pulled open the top drawer. Receipts, a checkbook, some loose stamps. Nothing interesting. Second drawer, old tax returns, some labeled, some not. One manila folder was marked Salazar Estate. My heart thudded. I opened it. Inside were copies of Grandpa's will, a few legal letters, and a stapled set of papers titled Pierce Family Trust, Annual Disbursements. I froze. The pages were thick, printed on high-quality paper. My hands shook as I flipped through them. Line after line of payments, $16,500 here, $18,200 there, all under Dawson's name. Monthly distributions, every month, for years. I did the math in my head and felt sick. Then I saw it. A note in my mother's handwriting, scribbled in blue ink at the top of one page, "Destroy after review." I stared at the words like they might change if I blinked. They didn't. "Olive?" Paris's voice was closer now. I shoved the folder under my sweater and slammed the drawer closed. "Found the albums," I called back, grabbing a dusty photo book from the shelf. She poked her head in. "Oh, good. Did you see the one from Dawson's high school graduation?" I forced a smile. "Yeah. He looked so proud." She beamed. "He's always been special." I nodded and walked out with the photo album in one hand and a burning secret pressed against my stomach. Back in my car, I locked the doors and pulled out the folder. I photographed every page with my phone, then slid the originals into my tote bag. I didn't know what I was going to do with them yet, but I knew I couldn't leave them behind. I drove straight to Ariel's. She opened the door in pajamas and blinked at me. "Jesus, you look like you saw a ghost." "Worse," I said, walking past her. I saw the truth. We sat on her couch while I laid out the papers. She scanned the first page, then the second. Her eyes widened. "Holy shit," she whispered. Olive, this is huge." "I know. They've been giving him this much every month? That's almost 200 grand a year." "Yep. And you've been paying for everything." I nodded. My throat felt tight. She looked up at me. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Ariel picked up one of the pages. "You need to make copies, hide them in different places, and you need to talk to a lawyer." I shook my head. "Not yet. I need more." She hesitated. "You're not going back there, are you?" "I have to." The next morning, I called out sick from work and went back to my parents' house. Paris was out running errands. Dad was asleep in his chair, snoring with his mouth open. I went straight for the desk again. This time, I checked the bottom drawer. More folders, some labeled, some not. One was dated just last month. I opened it. Inside was a printed email chain. Subject line, "Trust disbursement, bonus approval." The last message was from my dad to someone named M. Reynolds. It read, "Approved. Dawson has been under a lot of stress lately. Please process the $10,000 bonus as discussed." Signed with his full name. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. I was about to close the drawer when I heard the front door open. "Olive?" Paris's voice. I shoved the folder back and shut the drawer. "In here," I called, grabbing the photo album I'd left behind. She walked in holding a grocery bag. "Oh, you're still here." "Yeah, forgot this." She looked at me for a second too long. You didn't go through the desk, did you? My stomach dropped. What? The desk, she said lightly. Just asking. I smiled. No. Why? Her eyes narrowed just a little. No reason. I left 5 minutes later, heart pounding. That night, I went through the photos on my phone again. The trust statements, the email, my mother's handwriting, destroy after review. I remembered all the times I'd asked if Dawson could help, and they'd said he was barely getting by. The time I skipped grad school because we just don't have the funds. The time Dawson posted a picture of himself on a yacht in Santorini. I sent Ariel a text. I need a fireproof box and a plan. She replied instantly, I'm already Googling lawyers. I stared at the screen, then at the folder on my table. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was ready. I was in the middle of scanning the last batch of documents when my phone rang. Paris. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I answered, trying to sound normal. Hey, did you go snooping around in the guest room yesterday? My chest tightened. What? The desk. Were you looking through the drawers? I forced a laugh. No, I grabbed the photo album and left. Why? There was a pause. Some folders were out of place. Maybe Dad moved them? Another pause. Maybe. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at my phone. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I texted Ariel. They know someone was in the desk. I lied. I think she half believes me. Come over now, she replied. 20 minutes later, I was sitting on Ariel's floor, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. She picked up one of the scanned documents and shook her head. This one. Dawson got $22,000 in July. That's the same month you paid for their new hospital bed. I nodded. I remember because I put it on my credit card. Ariel looked up. You need to talk to someone legally. This is fraud, Olive. Not if they're the trustees. They can technically do whatever they want with the trust. But lying to you? Manipulating you into paying everything while they funnel money to Dawson? That's not just shady. That's evil. I didn't respond. I was too busy remembering things I'd tried to forget. Like the time I got accepted into a grad program in Chicago. I was 24, excited, ready to go. I'd asked my parents if they could help with tuition. They said no. Money's too tight, Greg had said. We're still dealing with the estate stuff. That same year, Dawson took a 6-month sabbatical to find himself in Europe. He posted pictures from Paris, Rome, Santorini. I thought maybe he'd saved up. Maybe he was just lucky. He wasn't lucky. He was funded. I picked up a folder and flipped through it again. That email from my dad authorizing the $10,000 bonus for Dawson just last month. Ariel leaned back against the couch. They've been doing this for years. I nodded. You've been paying for everything. Rent, food, medical bills, nursing home fees, and they just let you. They didn't just let me, I said. They expected it. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Paris. We need to talk. Come by tomorrow. I showed Ariel. She's on to you. Let her be. Ariel stood up. You need more proof, something from outside the family, something they can't spin. I looked at her. Like what? She grinned. Like the trust firm. Call them. Pretend to be someone else. Ask questions. Get them to confirm your parents are managing it. That's risky. So is giving them another chance to cover their tracks. The next morning, I called the number listed on one of the trust documents. I put on my best fake smile voice. Hi, this is Rachel from Martin & Jensen Law. I'm assisting with a client's estate review. I just have a quick question about the Pierce family trust. The man on the other end didn't even hesitate. Sure, what do you need? Just confirming, who are the current trustees on file? Looks like Greg and Paris, both listed as co-trustees. And the beneficiary? Only one, Dawson. I scribbled it down. Perfect, thank you. Need anything else? Nope, that's all. Appreciate it. I hung up and stared at the pad of paper in front of me. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup. Later that week, I visited the nursing home to drop off some paperwork. I'd barely stepped into the lobby when someone called my name. Olive? I turned. Lawrence, the facility's finance manager, was walking toward me holding a clipboard. Got a minute? Sure. We stepped into his office. He closed the door. I was reviewing some of your parents' billing records, he said. Something odd came up. I kept my face neutral. Odd how? There have been some overrides on their account, waivers, adjustments, all authorized by your father, but he's not listed as the financial guarantor. You are. My heart thudded. What kind of overrides? Things like waived late fees, extended payment terms, even a temporary rate reduction last year? I blinked. I didn't know about any of that. He frowned. That's the thing. You should've. I hesitated. If I brought in some documents, things that might explain what's been going on, would you look at them? Lawrence leaned forward. If it affects our billing or violates any agreements, yes, absolutely. I'll bring them in. 3 days. He nodded. I'll be here. As I left the office, I spotted Soleil near the front desk. She gave me a quick smile and a nod. I walked past her, holding my bag a little tighter. 3 days. I was going to burn it all down. Pierce Family Trust, this is Jessica. How may I help you? Hi, I'm calling on behalf of a client. I just need to confirm a few details regarding a trust account. I was sitting in my car outside a strip mall, pretending to be someone named Rachel again. I'd practiced the script with Ariel the night before. Jessica didn't ask for credentials. Sure, what's the trust name? Pierce Family Trust. Okay, give me a second. Found it. What would you like to know? Just confirming trustees and beneficiaries. Trustees are Greg and Paris. Beneficiary is Dawson. Is there a secondary beneficiary? Nope, just Dawson. Got it. And are the trustees active? Yes. Both are managing the account and authorizing disbursements. Perfect. Thank you. I hung up and stared at the steering wheel. It wasn't just a lie of omission. It wasn't something they forgot to tell me. They were managing the trust. They'd been signing off on every payout, every bonus, every luxury Dawson enjoyed while I was maxing out credit cards to keep them comfortable. I drove straight to the nursing home. I'd called ahead. Lawrence was expecting me. He met me in the lobby, his usual friendly smile replaced with something more serious. Let's go to my office. Soleil was already inside, seated at the small conference table. She gave me a tight smile. I pulled the folder from my bag and placed it on the table. This is what I found. Trust documents, emails, billing records. I think you'll want to see this. Lawrence opened the folder and started flipping through. His eyebrows lifted as he read. Soleil leaned in, scanning the pages with him. This is a lot, Lawrence said. These are original trust statements, copies of the originals. I found them in my parents' house. He turned to the email with the $10,000 bonus authorization. This was last month? Yes. While I was still paying their bills. Soleil pointed to a billing override form. This signature, this is Paris's? I nodded. She's not listed as guarantor, right? No, Lawrence said. You are. He pushed back from the table and folded his arms. This changes things. Soleil looked at him. Should we bring in legal? Lawrence nodded. Definitely. I stayed quiet as they made a few calls. 15 minutes later, Lawrence came back into the room. Our legal team is reviewing everything now. Based on what you've provided, we can put a hold on your payment obligations while we investigate. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like days. He continued, If your parents are the trustees and have been managing the trust, then technically they're the financial guardians. And if they've been misrepresenting that to us, we'll be pursuing back payment from them, or from Dawson if he's the primary beneficiary. Soleil added, and those forged signatures? That's serious. I nodded, gripping the edge of the table. I just want the truth out. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Lawrence gave me a long look. Sometimes the truth hurts anyway. I left the folder with them. As I walked out of the office, my phone buzzed. Mom. What have you done? Then another. You ungrateful little girl. You have no idea what you've started. I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone and kept walking. By the time I got home, Ariel was waiting on my porch with Thai food and a bottle of wine. I didn't even say hello. I just dropped into the chair next to her and let my head fall back. Well? She asked. They're investigating. I'm off the hook for payments for now. She handed me a spring roll. And your mom? Lost her mind. Called me ungrateful. Ariel snorted. Classic. I took a bite and stared at the sky. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? She didn't answer right away. Then, I think you've been doing the right thing your whole life. This is just you finally doing the smart thing. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Later that night, I opened my laptop and started organizing everything into folders, scans, emails, recordings. I labeled them by date. I added notes. I even backed everything up to a flash drive and hid it in my sock drawer. At the bottom of the main folder, I added a new document. Summary of evidence, Olive. I started typing. Trust fund distributions, $200K year to Dawson. Trustees, Greg and Paris. No mention of Olive in any legal paperwork. Billing overrides signed by Paris, not legal guarantor. Olive paid $6K month for 4 years, $288,000. I saved the file and closed the laptop. I looked around my apartment, small, quiet, paid for with my own damn money. Let them scream, let them rage. I had receipts. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. Paris. I let it ring. Then Greg. Then a text. Come by now. It's urgent. Dawson's here. I stared at the screen. My stomach sank. I called Ariel. Don't go alone, she said immediately. I have to. She sighed. Record everything. I will. I grabbed my tote bag, slid my phone into my bra, and hit record before I even turned the key in the ignition. Their house looked the same, too clean, too quiet. I knocked once and walked in. Dawson was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, sipping something from a crystal glass. Greg stood behind him, arms folded. Paris sat perched on the armrest, eyes red. Well, well, Dawson said. The prodigal daughter returns. I ignored him and turned to Greg. What's the emergency? Greg didn't waste time. We know what you did, Paris sniffled. How could you, Olive? After everything we've done for you. I laughed. Everything you've done for me? You mean the lies, the manipulation, the $6,000 a month I've been paying while you funneled trust money to Dawson? Dawson stood up slowly. You don't want to stir up old dirt, Liv. You've got enough on your plate. I turned to him. Is that a threat? He smiled. It's a suggestion. Greg stepped forward. You've always been emotional. But this is reckless. You forged signatures, I said. You let me go into debt while you handed him bonuses. Paris waved her hand. Dawson needed help. He was struggling. I stared at her. He was in Santorini. He was finding himself, she snapped. Dawson rolled his eyes. You've always had a martyr complex. You think suffering makes you noble? I clenched my jaw. No, I think stealing makes you a thief. Greg slammed his hand on the table. Enough. The room went silent. He looked at me, eyes cold. You want to burn this family down? Fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize what you've lost. I never had anything to lose, I said. You made sure of that. Paris started crying. We did what we thought was best. For who? I asked. For me? Or for your golden boy? Dawson stepped closer. You're not going to win, Olive. You think some documents and a sob story make you righteous? You're just bitter. I met his gaze. No, I'm done. I turned and walked out. Outside, I sat in my car, shaking. I stopped the recording and saved it. My phone buzzed. Ariel. Well? She asked. I got it all. Good, come over. I drove straight to her place. She opened the door, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. I feel like I'm going to throw up, I said. You won't. You're stronger than they are. I sat on the couch and pulled out my laptop. I need to finish the file. She sat next to me as I opened the folder labeled Master Evidence. We went through everything, scanned documents, emails, trust statements, billing records, the recording from today. I added the new audio file. Ariel leaned over. You should include the email from the lawyer's office, the one confirming your parents are the trustees. I nodded and dragged it in. Then I opened a blank document and started typing. Subject: Financial misconduct. Pierce Family Trust. 2. Lawrence Allen, Nursing Home Finance Manager. Attached are documents and recordings that provide evidence of financial misconduct by Greg and Paris, current trustees of the Pierce Family Trust. Summary. Olive has been paying $6,000 a month for 4 years and $288,000. Trust fund pays Dawson Eastall's $200K year. Trustees are Greg and Paris. Billing overrides signed by Paris, not legal guarantor. Forged documents and misrepresentation. Requesting official audit and reassignment of financial responsibility. I saved it as a PDF and attached everything. Ariel looked at me. Ready? I hovered over the send button. Then I clicked it. It was done. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Ariel nudged my arm. I'd love to see their faces when they realize the nurse isn't the only one watching them. I smiled for the first time that day. So would I. Lawrence greeted me at the front entrance with a nod. Come on back. We've got a room set up. I followed him down the hallway, past quiet rooms and nurses pushing carts. Soleil was already inside the conference room, flipping through a legal pad. She looked up and gave me a nervous smile. You brought the documents? I pulled the thick folder from my tote and placed it on the table. Everything's in here. Originals, scans, emails, recordings. Lawrence opened the folder and started sorting through the pages. His eyes moved fast, his jaw tightening the farther he went. Soleil leaned in, pointing at the trust statements. These match the overrides we found in the system, she said. Same months, same amounts. Lawrence held up the email from my dad, approving the $10,000 bonus. This alone is enough to trigger a full audit. He flipped to the waiver forms with Paris's signature. And this, she's not the guarantor. You are. I nodded. They've been signing off on everything behind my back. I didn't even know the trust existed until last month. Soleil looked at Lawrence. Legal's gonna want to see this ASAP. He nodded. Already looped them in. I'll send this over today. He looked at me. Olive, based on what you've shown us, we're officially suspending your payment obligation pending the outcome of our investigation. I blinked. Wait, so I don't have to pay anything right now? No, and if legal confirms what we think they will, we'll be pursuing back payment from the actual financial trustee. That would be your brother, as the sole beneficiary of the trust. Soleil added, there may also be legal consequences for the forged documents. That's outside our scope, but it's serious. I sat back in my chair and exhaled. Lawrence closed the folder and pushed it toward me. Keep a copy of everything. We'll take care of the rest from here. I nodded and stood. Thank you, both of you. Soleil smiled. You did the right thing. I barely made it to my car before my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring. Then a text came through. What have you done? Then another. You ungrateful, spiteful girl. You're tearing this family apart. And then Greg. You've made a huge mistake. I stared at the screen, then turned it off and dropped it in my bag. I drove to Ariel's. She was already waiting on the porch with 2 iced coffees and a look that said, "Tell me everything." They're launching an investigation, I said, setting my bag down. I'm off the hook for payments. Dawson's about to get hit with the bill. Ariel grinned. Oh, I bet he's gonna love that. I laughed, but it came out shaky. Paris is melting down. She called me ungrateful. She's always been ungrateful that you didn't roll over and play dead. I sat next to her and took a sip of coffee. I'm not sure how this ends. Ariel leaned back. It ends when you stop paying for their lies. That night, I opened my laptop and checked my email. Lawrence had already sent confirmation. Your financial obligation has been suspended pending the outcome of our internal investigation. Legal counsel has been notified. I forwarded it to myself, printed a copy, and slid it into the folder marked Final Evidence. I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed again. Voicemail from Paris. I played it on speaker. You don't understand what you've done. Dawson has always needed more support. He's sensitive. You've always been strong, Olive. You've always managed. Why can't you just be grateful for once in your life? I stood there, toothbrush in hand, staring at the mirror. Grateful. For what? The next morning, I got another call, this time from the nursing home's legal department. They were moving forward with a formal audit of the trust. Dawson would be contacted directly regarding financial responsibility. I didn't even smile. I just nodded and said, thank you. 2 hours later, Paris called again. I answered. Olive, she said, her voice trembling. We need to talk, face to face. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just come to the house. I hesitated. Dawson will be here, your father too. I hung up without answering. Then I texted Ariel. They want a meeting, I'm going. She replied instantly, record everything, and wear something sharp. You're not the victim anymore. I stared at that message for a long time before replying, copy that. I was ready for the final act. The living room was too quiet. Paris sat on the edge of the couch, eyes puffy, hands clasped like she was praying. Greg stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw tense. Dawson lounged in the armchair like he was bored at a dentist's office. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. You said you wanted to talk? Paris stood up. Olive, please, this has gone too far. Greg didn't move. You've embarrassed this family. Dawson smirked. Congratulations, you got your moment. I stayed standing. You mean the moment where I stopped being your personal ATM? Paris flinched. We didn't ask for that. You didn't have to. You just let me keep paying while you handed Dawson hundreds of thousands of dollars. Greg stepped forward. You don't understand how trusts work. I understand enough, I cut in. I understand that you've been managing it, that you forged signatures, that you lied. Paris's voice cracked. We didn't lie. We just didn't tell you everything. I laughed. That's called lying, Mom. Dawson stood up, arms spread. So what's the plan, Liv? You blow everything up, and then what? You get a medal? No, I get my life back. He scoffed. You've always been bitter, always jealous. Jealous? I snapped. Of what? Your vacations? Your Tesla? Your trust fund you pretended didn't exist while I skipped meals to pay for their nursing home? Paris's voice rose. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said, stepping closer. I think this makes me free. Greg's face turned red. You think exposing this makes you a hero? You've destroyed this family. This family destroyed itself, I said. I just turned on the lights. Paris started crying. Dawson needed it more. He was struggling. You were always the strong one. You always figured it out. I stared at her. And that made it okay to bleed me dry? She reached for me. You're our daughter. Not anymore. She froze. I took a breath. I'm done being your daughter. From now on, you're just names on a billing ledger. Dawson shook his head. You're cold. No, I said. I'm done being warm for people who left me out in the cold. Paris let out a sound, half sob, half gasp. It was raw, animalistic. I turned and walked to the door. Greg called after me. You'll regret this. I paused. I already regret not doing it sooner. Then I opened the door and walked out. I didn't look back. Outside, I sat in my car, hands shaking. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording, saved it, backed it up to the cloud. Then I drove straight to Ariel's. She opened the door, took one look at my face and stepped aside. How bad? They melted down. She handed me a drink. Good. I sat on her couch and stared at the wall. I told them I'm done, that they're just names on a ledger now. Ariel nodded slowly. That's brutal. They earned it. She sat next to me. So what now? Now, I said, they deal with the consequences. Ariel smiled. You didn't just light the match. You burned the whole house down. I leaned back and exhaled, and I'm not going back to sweep the ashes. I was standing in line at the pharmacy when Dawson called. I stared at the screen, then hit decline. He called again. I picked up. What? You think this is over? His voice was tight, clipped. They're making me pay everything, backdated, with penalties. Sounds fair. You ruined everything. No, I said. I just stopped letting you ruin me. He was quiet for a beat. Then, you're going to regret this. I laughed. You've been saying that for weeks, still waiting. I hung up and blocked his number. Outside, the air was crisp. I walked to my car, popped the trunk, and dropped the bag of prescriptions inside. One was for Paris, refills she used to beg me to pick up. I didn't bother anymore. They had to figure that out on their own now. Back home, I kicked off my shoes and opened the window. The breeze smelled like rain. I stood there for a while, just breathing. No calls, no invoices, no guilt. Ariel came by around 7. She brought takeout and a bottle of wine. You look lighter, she said, handing me a carton of noodles. I feel it. She raised an eyebrow. Even after the letter? I nodded toward the coffee table. Didn't open it. Paris had sent it last week, a thick envelope, addressed in her handwriting. I'd tossed it next to the electric bill and never touched it again. You're not curious? Nope. Ariel smirked. That's growth. We ate on the floor like we used to in college. Halfway through dinner, she pulled out her phone. So I did a thing. I narrowed my eyes. What kind of thing? She turned the screen toward me. It was a Reddit post. Our true off my chest. The title read, My family lied to me for years. I made them pay. Literally. You posted it? I asked. I changed names and details, but yeah, the world needed to hear it. I scrolled through the comments. Thousands of upvotes. People calling it empowering, heartbreaking, satisfying. A few asked if it was real. I smiled. Let them wonder. Ariel raised her glass. To karma. We clinked. Later, after she left, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. No more forced smiles, no more exhaustion carved into my skin. Just me. I started therapy last week. The first session, I cried the entire hour. The second, I talked about Paris's voice in my head, telling me to be grateful, to be quiet, to give more. The third, I brought a painting I'd started. My therapist asked what it meant. I said, it means I'm starting over. I still flinch when my phone rings. I still hesitate before opening the mailbox. Some wounds don't close clean. But I sleep through the night now. I say no without apologizing. I don't explain myself to people who never listened, and when I think about revenge, I don't feel guilty. I feel free. Everyone warned me revenge was bitter, but no one tells you how liberating it tastes when served cold on a silver tray you paid for yourself.